cool cats.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing good. Mahalo.
Yee, you learned something awesome.
I've been to your wonderful part of the world twice, and I'm in love with it. I'm obsessed with Hawaii. Wish it was
cool. We have some great local cons too. You'd love them.
Yes, I think I met you at Aloha Con a couple years ago.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally. I think I have
blend together after a while.
I think I've stashed in my purse a couple of your cute little cards that you had at the end of the con.
Right on.
So I know that William Bell Grant's going to have a little bit of a lag because his has to come, like to satellite and back to the Earth. Because he's a far away. So sorry if there's any glitches there. So we've got
everything from Hawaiian time. So
Hawaiian time is calm time. Sorry,
yeah.
He's up in an hour from now, so I'm trying to get William in here too. So we have another William coming.
Yeah.
I want to start with Russell. Russell, I've been seeing your work on social media for a long time, and I went today and read some of the descriptions in some of the books, and I think to myself, I need to be owning these books for sure. Give everyone kind of an overview of what kind of books that you make.
Sure. So my name is Russell Nohelty. I'm a USA Today best-selling author. Everyone thinks I write horror. I write fantasy. Not that I don't like horror, but my books are fantasy books. The most popular of which is right behind me is Ichabod Jones' Monster Hunter. It's about a psychopath or a mental patient that escapes an asylum and becomes a monster hunter, but doesn't know if he's killing monsters, humans, or it's all in his head the whole time. We are currently in production on issue 14 of 16. And then the most popular universe that I have is called the Godzilla Chronicles. It is 7 novels and 2 graphic novels with another 3rd graphic novel in production, and then 4 additional novels in production that are going to be launching the end of this year and then the beginning of next year.
Yeah, you've got a wide breadth of product out there. So it's a mix between novels and graphic novels. What did you start with?
I started doing comics first. I'm trying to remember because it's been so long. I started comics first in 2010. And I wrote my first novel in 2011. But my first comic came out in 2014. And then soon after, I launched my whole company. There's been a mix of comics and novels throughout the whole course of my career. It's really hard because comics take a long time, and I'm a writer, so I don't have so much to do with the process of art once the artist gets the script. So I can bang out. Takes about 8 months for an artist to create to do an arc, and at this point, I can create somewhere between 6 and 8 novels in that time as well. So I usually have 1 graphic novel. Right now, I have 3 graphic novels working, and then I'm writing about a novel every month.
So my guess from your statement then is that you really get up in the morning every morning and get to the writing. You don't just like wait for inspiration. You just like sit down and do the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any career where you can just sit and wait for inspiration, or at least one that is so mythologized as writing, where you just sit around and wait for like inspiration to hit. Like plumbers don't start the day waiting for inspiration to hit. Electricians, like comic store owners, like they don't like people get up and then they start their day and they do the work and then they end their day. And then, sometimes they're very happy with the work they did that day. And sometimes they are less than happy with the work they did that day. And in the same way, my hope is that by getting the words on a page, then I can make them feel good later or feel cohesive later if they don't when they come out. But yeah, I think it's a myth, and one that is not it's detrimental to people to think that you can just wait for the muse to strike, especially because the longer you wait, for the muse to strike, the less the muse strikes. The muse tends to strike things that are in motion, and to allow you to make more stuff.
So if you're working on graphic novels,
That's very true.
are you working on more than one project at a time? So if you have like a stall in your brain for one, you just hit to the other?
So this is one of the biggest tricks that I learned in the past year, is that if I am consecutively writing different projects in different universes, I can almost double my production. So the Godsverse Chronicles, I just finished book 9 last month. I'm about done with the 7th book in a new universe, and then next month I'll start another Godsverse book. And by having those two things balance each other out, it allows me to allow my brain to rest in one project while it's still active in one project. And then I speckle in comic work and short work sort of in the afternoons. I work from somewhere about 9 to 2. And then after that, after I've done my work for the day, that's when I do the shorts and comic work and other stuff that I have to get done that I can pepper in during my writing a book. A novel takes all of my time and concentration, so I can slowly get through a comic because my brain works in comics. It does not work in novels, so it's a lot easier for me to get the comics done in sort of the afternoon or when I have a break between projects.
So if you write in comic and not necessarily a novel, are you just writing long form comic when you're writing your novels? You just instead of waiting for the artist to do the art, you just describe it out?
So it's funny because for me, so there's a lot of rules in comics. That's why I love comics. It's like, every page needs to have a hit to turn the page. Every 2 pages needs to have a turn to get to the next page. And every issue has to have like a hook to get you to the next issue. Every arc has to have a hook to get you through the next arc, and they all have to cohesively work together. So I like to think like I generally work in every 2 to 5 pages of comic equals one chapter of novel. So like
You have a fan.
Yeah, hi Brian. I'm a huge fan of his too, and his marked world. So yeah, I feel like I'm saying where the beginning beat, like where the beginning panel of a chapter is, and where the end panel of a chapter is when I'm writing a novel, and then I'm basically writing somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 words that mesh those together, knowing that like the hook has to get you to continue the next chapter, just like it does to have you turn a page.
That's magical.
That's why people like you are gold to publishers, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I as a publisher myself, I know that like you're only as the reader only loves you in so much as they will buy the next issue, and your publisher only loves you in so much as like they'll buy the next book that you make. So I know that things have to be, and I got better over time. Like the hookiness of it, I think in the Ichabod later issues is way better, and in the novels is way better. And the nice thing about being like on the writing side and not the art side, although I have drawn 2 books, is I am able to live in different worlds, and they all like the things you learn in novels helps you in comics. The things you learn in comics help you in novels. Things you help in both help you in screenwriting, and they all kind of populate together and work to like make the overall product of your writing career all the better.
Doc, you want to speak to that?
Well, basically, I've been doing comics since 1977. That makes me older than dirt because I predate the internet. But the number one thing that I've always learned is that comics is about heart. The stories that come out of the creator's heart goes onto the page, through their hands, and into the reader's hearts to stay. That's making comics. If you make a good, evocative story, they'll come back for more. And sometimes you hit it out of the park. Sometimes it takes you decades to get the product going. But once you do, and you start getting those fans coming back for more, that's basically what you really want out of your product. You want people happy. When I was at the SDCC, one of the old-time DC, one of the old-time DC people that I ran into, I asked him, when you look around all this place here in the San Diego Comic-Con, you were here, like, you were there in, like, right when the golden age of comics started. Like, what do you think of all this? And he just pointed over to a kid about to get a comic book. His face was lit up like the sun, and he said, "That's what we work for. We're entertainers. Never lose sight of that, because everybody in the company is an entertainer or adds to the reader's experience. If you're in marketing, you're in outside everything. You may have a one-man team, you may have a 100-man team, but you're all entertainers, and the bottom line is smiles, happy readers whose hearts you fill, and they like coming back for more." Out of all of that, I mean, Russell, you work like, you're awesome, dude. You are just amazing. And you can use the skip shovel at the back, isn't enough. But seriously, dude, your legendary humility, mwah, you're awesome. And
I appreciate that.
Every success.
Same back to you, brother.
And I see that House is on, but I see also Zing has got his icon up, and I know he's on a super time crunch. He's actually on set right now. Zing, can you hear us?
Oh, good.
Tell us what's going on. What's happening in your neck of the woods?
Hi, Jim. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's good to see you. So we're actually we're in production right now and working on the show, and it's stuff going on everywhere, but it's going good.
So good. I know I appreciate you taking out a little bit of time from your day to pop over to say hi to us. I know it was a difficult thing to be able to do. So I'm going to give you the time that you need before you have to skedaddle. What you can see, kind of the little icon there, is got an awesome book called Sonic Verses, which is in production right now. It's a mind-blowingly good book. The art is so hard to describe how detailed it is. I've seen him actually do the work on the page and see all the little tiny details he's working on. And when I first met Zing, he told me how many times he had presented this work to publishers and had it rejected, and my mind exploded. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I learned the art from China and Korea. That was where my teachers came from, and so symphonic verses is something that I've worked on for 26 years. I was doing, comic shows back in the 90s, selling black and white sketchbooks, and some of them in the very beginning were just stapled together, but they would sell, and then I started making posters, and those would sell out at every show. And so then as I began to work on the art more and more, it was difficult to get a Western style, a Western publisher to kind of be interested in it. And so it got rejected 157 times, and that is the actual number. And no one would publish it. No one would touch it, not because they said I was doing something wrong, but because aesthetically it looked different. It was too different for them to want to take a chance on. And so in 2017, I decided to go ahead and just self-publish it. And I put it out, and it sold out. And then another print run sold out. And now 8 print runs have sold out. Volume 2 came out in the summer of last year, and it sold out of its second printing already. A third one is coming. And then before it actually came out, I had met some gentlemen from Hollywood. They stumbled across my work, and they asked me what it was, and I told them, and they said, why don't you give us a call that Monday? And that was a Saturday. So then that Monday I go, and I talked to them, and they're like, you have 30 seconds to pitch it, what it is. And I was like, okay, I didn't realize the whole board of directors was there and the owner of the movie studio. And so I pitched it, and they were like, yep, we like it, so we're going to turn it into a TV show. And so they gave me my TV deal, and since then they've picked up 4 more of my series. I have a slew of other books and comics that I'm working on, and a live-action detective thriller that's going to be filmed by, it's going to be directed by Patrick Mauve, who is a really, really great guy, and that's set in Germany. And so the thing that the gentleman who was speaking before I came on, I appreciate every sentiment that you said, because that is exactly how it should be. The thing to it is, you and Jen, as many times, as we've talked over the times, you want to share that experience with creators, and you want to be able to have them walk away from what you've done and come back to it and share it with people, because ultimately that's what it's about. It's not about us, but it's about this experience that we can share with everybody and with anyone who's able to be part of it. And so the thing for me that I find most interesting is that, and has been such an amazing blessing in so many ways, is that despite all of the setbacks and despite all of the things that have happened, I have had Santa Monica Studio, I have had Square Enix, I have had Blizzard Entertainment, Mercury Steam, some of the largest names in video games, comic books, and some of the very people who rejected my work have given it very, very high acclaim and have been very kind about it. And it's received multiple perfect scores, and I still get messages from individuals who just talk about how it has affected them. And that's the key, is you want to be able to do something that helps people to escape the hardships that often we face in real life, especially nowadays. And so it's really just been this really amazing thing that I didn't think would ever happen that way. And yet here we are, and I'm just very grateful that I get to share it with individuals, and it's like on the TV show, a dream that I always had. I always wanted to work with like 2 Steps from Hell, because they're just absolutely amazing. I never thought that would happen, and yet it is happening. Where now these composers who have written music for just about every successful film franchise that has been, they have worked on it, and they're doing stuff for symphonic verses. And so it really is just it's a humbling thing, and I'm just so grateful for all of it. And certainly, let me tell you, I know y'all know, but I just have to say it. Jen King is the best, and she really is. And she goes out of her way to do so much for creators, to do so much for the comic community as a whole. And meeting her has been absolutely one of the best things and greatest privileges that I've had. You're really fantastic, Jen, and you do so much for everybody. And it is certainly appreciated. And it's all good encompassing things that you're involved in with all of us, and we certainly appreciate you.
I feel the same way about each person that's come on, and because to me, I get to like talk to my heroes all the time. It's like this rare thing that you like when you're growing up. You think maybe someday I want to meet my heroes, but then this kind of opportunity comes along where I get to sit and be part of this wonderful community that we've got in comic books, where lift each other up. It's an amazing place to be. Zing, I know you don't have a lot of time. Do you want to give kind of like just a very simple overview of what this is about?
Sure. So Symphonic Verses is a fantasy series. It's set in a world that's called Levi Samanos V. And the main character, he is a prince. His name is Adonis, and he comes from a kingdom called the Noctum Imperium. His wife has died, and on the eve of this treaty signing, he is in a neutral kingdom where it's supposed to take place, and he meets another princess named Sapphirose, who possesses the same kind of divine power that he does, and they realize that the two of them are the only ones who share it. And ultimately, what the story is about is he has to make a choice between not good and bad, but between evil and a greater evil. So the question is how can you do what's right when you can only do what's wrong? And in the midst of that, they're dealing with this war that has gone on in their world for 800 years. The mystical swords of power have returned to the mortal world. A evil beyond comprehension has begun to seep his way back into their realm. And so there are all these things going on, but ultimately his choices and him trying to find a way to bring his wife back from the dead. And it's one of those things that if it can be done, at what cost is it done? How is it achieved? And so their world is a mix of this great Baroque influence and Gothic design, but yet there are these modern technological city kingdoms who are vying for supremacy. There are very few of the original kingdoms that are left, but Adonis's kingdom, the Noctum Imperium, still stands. It is the greatest in the north and is held up by the 12 stewards of the Lucium Duodecim. And so there is so much lore, there is so much that goes on in the story, and it's so layered. And so if you can appreciate like great literary things like Hamlet and Bram Stoker's Dracula and the Iliad and the Odyssey and these things that are great ironies that play on these very human emotions and human elements, but yet there's this great fantasy sense that is over the top of it, and the characters have truly, really spectacular and amazing abilities and fighting skills, and there's a lot of it's a lot of darkness, it's a lot of tragedy, and it's about love, but it's about impossible hope. And so it touches on all of these things, and you watch this journey as this prince goes through these trials and these tribulations, and he ends up in places that I don't think people would think, and it all is leading to this shocking outcome that no one could have imagined, especially for the people who were part of it. So that's kind of in a nutshell. That's what's happening.
I've read the entirety of the first issue, and I'm kind of waiting on the other ones. So because I basically, this is no lie, I sold all my copies, so I didn't get a chance to read them before that left. But what I love about the combination of the art and the storytelling is that there's so much on the page that's drawn that you feel like you have to maybe read the book once and then go back and then read it and then look around on the page, all the things that are going on. It feels like there's so much more going on in each page, but when you get done reading what you're reading on a page, you immediately have to go to the next one because you're just like, you're drawn into the story moving forward. But I feel like definitely this is one of those you could read two or three times just to try to get everything out of the issue. It's the most page drawing I've seen. And also, it reminds me so much of another artist that I really, really love, Colleen Duran, which does a lot of like really great world building and characters. You're just like, oh, I need all their clothes because I'm a costume designer also. So to me, I look at comic books in that way. I'm like, I think I'm gonna have to make that.
Oh, Jid, I'd love to have some of the stuff that they wear made in the real world. That would be really cool. That'd be very fun. I I'd appreciate that. And the volume 3, so I'm working on volumes 3 and 4 at the same time, but the volume 3 prelude will come out soon. And what the thing that is really important about how the story is told is that in volume 1, you see the influence of this great threat. It is in volume 2 where it's talked about some more, but in volume 3, readers will actually finally get a chance to get a glimpse of what it is and what its name is. And so everything is really, really very meticulously laid in. And I think one of the kindest compliments that I got that still blows my mind is I had the privilege to show it to Hideo Kojima. And that man is a genius, because you look at the Metal Gear Solid series, you know, just all these things. And then I had the chance to share it with Tetsuya Nomura of Square Enix, and he is the keeper of all things Final Fantasy. And they shared some very, very kind words with me. And I thought, for people of their caliber to share their genuine and honest thoughts that were so upbuilding and so encouraging, and it's I mean, boy, I had tears in my eyes because if you set out to make something, to just make it to make a profit, it will fail. But if you make something and you pour your essence into it because you just want to share that with people, and I tell people this all the time, at the end of the day, these will always be my characters, my stories, these things, but it is because of people who believe in it that it turns it into something else. So it's not because I've done anything extraordinary. It's because people take the time to see it, and then that's what brings it to life, and that's what turns it into something else. And that's what we get to share as a community. And it just is it's a real privilege, and I'm grateful every day that I get to wake up and do what I do.
Well, we're all looking forward to getting to see it on the screen. I know that it takes forever from the finishing of something being shot until it actually gets to see the screen. It just takes a lot of extra work and editing and all those kinds of things, but we look forward to it very much. Thank you so much for the time.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate it so much. I'm glad I got to come on and meet everyone. And Jen, it's always a pleasure to see you, my friend. And I look forward to the next time when I have some more time where I can sit and I can chat longer.
Perfect.
All right. Well, hey, y'all take care. Enjoy the rest of your show, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
So, Doc, tell me about when did Lime Media Hawaii start as a company?
Well, let's see. Lime Media Hawaii. Oh, yuck. My bald is showing. Anyway, the Lime Media Hawaii is started out as something called Surf Comics Hawaii, which began back in 1977. Incarnation since then, including Royal Hawaiian QRP Press, ham radio code meaning low power or small press, and then we had tried Quantum Comics Works, Quasar Comics Works, a couple of others. And then I started working with a friend of mine named Bill Holt, who had Limelight Publishing. And I came on board and basically took over as the coordinator for the comic line as manager. However, we were plagued with late irregular product. Sometimes it was just that the creators had medical emergencies, like a child needing an emergency surgery, and various types of physical ailments. And that's no less true today in most circles. We've had some creators that have had to, well, essentially take a break due to family pressures, caregivers, that sort of thing. And I was no different. We had brought out the Hawaii Star Manga Project in 2010. That was our digital comic under Lime Media Hawaii when we first started back in like around Lime Media Hawaii started in 2002 as a split off when the parent company moved to Vegas from Limelight Publishing, and I took over what was the Hawaii division, and we kept running we started running the Anime and the Limelight radio show, and that was basically legendary anime DJ Max. And from there, we branched out back into comics in 2010. After a couple of failed starts, we launched the Hawaii Star Manga Project, which was basically intended to be a newsprint comic insert in a local paper that was struggling to try to help them out. So we came up with a bunch of test copies that we released once a month from March until September 2010. It didn't go. And then it ended in September of 2010 because my father had a stroke. So we were looking after him, and then we wound up having some reversals in fortune, as any small press publisher is going to be familiar with. And we wound up basically taking a bit of a hiatus from comics. Then about 2016, we started working on the various incarnations that will become the Code 3 comic, the Hylanthean, and we added Mystery of the Blackwater. And another favorite of mine, a talented young lady named Napua Ihina, and a couple of our friends from Las Vegas, very good comic artists. There's basically when the Hawaii Star Manga Project debuted, it's been on Amazon and such for over 10 years. When we launched, we were one of the very few non-yaoi manga in the manga section back in 2010. So we rocketed up. We would be like number 1 or number 2 in science fiction, number 2 or number 3 in fantasy, because we were basically G-rated. And people enjoyed us. The one problem that we did have was that we did have low sales. We would have, right now to date, we've got about 15 million online views and 25 sales.
What?
So the kids read the free part and then bail. But the inside front for the book that we produced has also been seen 15 million times. So it's placement gold if you're doing an online comic book that's actually in that looks like a floppy. So you can get some pretty good responses out there if you're careful. But monetizing it is going to be a problem. And that's where you really have to work on building your brand, be consistent. You have to be able to have an easily identifiable brand. We had that problem with Hawaii Star Manga Project. People didn't know what it was. We would put up our thing, and they were looking at it like, okay, Lime Media Hawaii, what do you do? We put little bits of comics up that we produce up above the name of the company, and it still didn't help. So I finally found that Comics Hawaii, which was the name of an old comics distributor, was available. So I snatched it up, and now we're rebranding our company. Over time, your company is going to grow and shift and change. And sometimes adversity will really, really temper your company, beating the hell out of it and making it stronger in the long run. Mm-hmm. And I have been kicked in the teeth more times than I care to remember. And each time I lick my chops, get back up, and come back for more. Because Heroes don't quit when the odds are against them, and their parents don't either.
That's right. So you were like Steve Rogers in the alleyway saying, "I can do this all day."
Let's hope so. Yeah, but but after a while, everybody has those moments where they like to reflect and say, "Okay, times are changing, and I didn't. What do I need to fix?" And that's where your brand is really important. The one thing you really got to have is kind of an eye-catching logo. Not unlike, let's see, Mystery of Blackwater. This one is done by a very, very nice young creator who's a painter. But that logo generally does stand out at the 3 to 4 feet that you're expected to see it from in a comic shop. So does things like the Hylanthean. But then you have things like this. But depends where you're placing it on the rack. You can stand out depending. That's why there's 3 major tests that I make comics go through. One, first and foremost, to go to the comic shop, take a look at the competition that's around you. Where are you going to be in that comic shop? Then the second part, you print out a dummy cover, trim it, put it in the rack, and you send your friends in to find it in 5 minutes. If they can't, you put the cover with the different logo and things, and you stick it in there, and then you have another set of friends try to find it in 5 minutes. And the last step, and this one's kind of fun, is to get a focus group together of, well, nerds. You can either have some people give you opinions at cons of like an ash can or something like, you think this was going to sell? What do you guys think it is? Should we do the logo like this or that? Get opinions, get feedback. And not necessarily from people that are, well, publishers or other folks like that. Go talk to the nuts and bolts folks, the folks that are actually walking into Jen's store and actually buying stuff off the rack. It's like, what do you guys think it is? The creators put their hearts and souls in a lot of this stuff. They work their butts off. And as Russ pointed out correctly, you have to be on all the time. You've got to be able to produce and outdo yourself every single time. And that is the really, really tough challenge. But small independent books, when I get some of those creators, I pick up the story, I'm looking at it, and it hits me right here. It's like, okay, this guy is slow. This guy is going to take a while between issues, but the product is worth it.
Right.
Because that's one of the major criterias, touching the reader's heart with the fruits of your own. I mean, Russell, bravo, man, you've done that for years, and you are loved.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really tough to quantify that piece because people come to me asking about marketing or asking about like how to get their book sales up, and I often look at their books and I say, like, I think you have a more fundamental problem than like the marketing aspect of this, because there are in order to have marketing work, you've got to spend a lot of money on marketing, and that means that you have to make a bunch of money to like spend on that marketing. And often when you're at a book, you will say, well, if I send 1,000 people to this ad, 1,000 clicks to this ad, like, I don't think you're going to get a return that will be greater than the money you put in. And so it's really important that you look at the cover and you comp it to the other things that have been successful in your genre. That you don't have to be, well, in novels it's a lot hard. So if anyone's listening to as a novel, like almost you want it to look directly and exactly like other books that are in that, like the tropes of the covers. Comics have a little more variability and flexibility in that respect.
It does.
But for instance, if you have like a novel, like an urban fantasy novel, you want a girl on the front cover holding like some sort of fire or something like that. She's magical. Like that's just like if you don't have that cover, and you go onto Kindle Unlimited, you're not going to do well. Which brings me to a second part of this, whereas if you have to look at where your market is buying your product. So our Kickstarter books look very different than books that we have for the mass market on Amazon. They look very different than something I would be putting through a store. They look and at each stage of that, you have to know what people are buying and what format. If you look behind me, like these are hardcover editions, like these are collector editions, and so like I would never put these in a comic shop because like they are like they stand out in a way, but probably not against 50 other comics that are there, but they are hardcovers. So that is another variable. So hardcovers like look differently than soft covers do. Usually they're more simplistic covers. Usually they are like, if you can see all of the cover, that both of these covers look like they're in the same series. They are like branded together. So like format is important to look at when you're branding yourself, but also just like, what do you want people to feel when they are thinking about you as a creator? Not each product has to have that ability, and you have to think about that. But overall, in the sense of your career, like when somebody thinks of a Russell Nohelty book, like what do I want them to think about? Like when Doc is telling someone about my work, like what are the things that I want him to tell, or Jen, like what are the things that go across all of the work that I do? And I think that if people do a good job, which I'm not, if they do a good job of thinking about each series, most people do a less good job thinking about their brand as a whole and their career as a whole, which is fine if you are someone like Brian K. Vaughan and you're like, okay, cool, I've got Saga. It sells infinite books. If I make something that is completely off brand from me, then I'll still sell 50,000 copies of this book. Like that's still a big success. But what happens is you have people that are creating a series. Let's say it's a fantasy series, and let's say 1,000 people buy that book. Well, now they're going to create something wholly different, like a romance book, like a contemporary romance book. And those 1,000 people aren't jumping over to romance. They'll have to build things from scratch, unless they can give people a reason to go over to that book. So when you have a career where like you've had a robust number of titles, you can do more to break the mold. But I learned early in my career that the people that like my comics aren't reading my novels for the most part. And people that like Ichabod aren't necessarily reading Earth. And like there are people that will read everything. And they're amazing. Like you can throw anything in front of them, and they know because I've built my brand in such a way that people know, like the kinds of tropes that I deal with, the kinds of things that they should expect from my work, and like they will take it on faith that like they will like a book that I drew, which looks like a 4-year-old drew it. But that takes planning on a career level, and it takes saying like what is the thing that I want people to find first? What is the product that is going to be front and center? And so for us, it's my anthology series, Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. And if you look at, that's okay, buddies, I'll pick you up later. If you look at this, book, then you look at this. If you look at these two books together, like they look like they could be in the same universe, like written by the same people. Like they are. So this is front and center, and then this is the book that they find next, and then they might find my novels. Or they might find Katrina or the Gods verse or some other piece of it. But my job as a creator, and when I'm thinking about building my brand, is like Cthulhu or whatever the brand is. Like this is the thing. Like this is bigger than me, way bigger than me. But like people that like this, that like this, will also like this, and then they'll also like this book, and they'll also like this book, and you can then bring them in closer and closer to the core of what you want to do with the weirder books, or like the things that maybe are off brand, and that will grow. Those people that will read anything will grow over time, and then you can throw up something like a book called How Not to Invade Earth, which we did at the end of last year, and it'll get 200 people to buy it, which 2 years ago 20 people would have bought it. And I think of that as like novels, like what is the thing that's going to be out in front of your brand? And frankly, you might have something that is small, and that might be up front of your brand now, but then you want to keep growing that with the next thing. Like, okay, what is the lead in to this product? What is the lead in to this product? And how do I put these spiders out so that like the most people that are in my potential audience are going to see it and then maybe buy it? And then I can worry about the like putting out my like existential treatise on like on living, because I know that like an existential treatise on like what it means to be alive is like that doesn't have a big audience. Just doesn't, like, it does not have the kind of audience that like Captain America has, or like whatever it does. Like people are not searching for that book in that same way. So you have to, when I think about a brand, I think of, you can see this little bee behind me, like that is Melissa the Wannabe. Like she represents all of our books, like and if you notice, like put these two books underneath here, take our other books, like there is brand consistency across all of those things. And the hope is that those people that are buying the Cthulhu book will also buy this book. And then when they buy 2 or 3 or 4 books, then they're like, okay, I'm a fan of Russell's work. Like, what other random weird stuff has he done? Like, what other things? Like, what are I had people, we did the summer slate book of like kind of developmental books I hadn't released yet last year, but like they kind of defined my growth as a career. A book called Worst Thing in the Universe, Void Calls Us Home, the marked ones, Invasion, these books that like don't have a big audience, and I can't put marketing money behind because they're only standalones. And people bought that book because they said, I wanted to see the foundational, formational like books that like made you the writer you are today. Like, yeah, I've had somewhat of a career at this point. And so there are a significant amount of people who will just like sit at this level and buy all of the books. But 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. 5 years ago, 3 years ago, that wasn't the case. And so, and then the final thing that I think about with brand is like, what are the products that I can put money into and get a, like, how can I, like, in order to put money behind a book, like real money, like a book there has to be, I call it money behind. So it's like, if you have or issue 1, you need to have book 2, issue 2, 3, 4, 5, because you're going to lose money on whatever you're sending people, to probably. So like Ichabod book 1, volume 1, then there's 2, 3, there'll be 4. Like you can put money behind it. Cthulhu is hard to spell. Like that's a thing that like has such big brand recognition that like you can put money behind those brands. And then again, you're thinking like, this is the brand. And then these are the ancillary things I want to do to expand the brand, to expand it past the parameters of what there are now. But there has to be something that you're leading people to. And I saw there was a question here, so I'm gonna. Hey Tom. So, do you choose the thing, or do your fans readers? So, this is hard because for me, I picked the thing. Like I did Ichabod, like that was and then fans told me that that's what they liked. So if and because I had Ichabod, like it put me in a lane. Like it was like, this is the lane you're in. And like the Cthulhu and all the other things that came after it came because like I made that initial Ichabod choice. So what I say is you should make a bunch of stuff. Like people start trying to monetize stuff way too early in their lives anyway. Like go make all the crazy stuff you want. Like go make that weird book about a pickle who falls into a black hole, and like go make the romance book, and go like write a thriller, like write everything and learn what stuff you want to write and then make that decision. So like I love mythology, I love fairy tales, like I love fantasy, I love like thriller type like high action stuff, and I like comedy. So like those are the things. Luckily Ichabod has all of that stuff. But like once you put something out in the market, your fans will tell you what it is. And one thing I don't agree with Doc on is I don't market test things usually. Like I let the market test them. Like I don't put together focus groups. Like sometimes I'll ask fans who have already bought my work what they think, but I am not going to take anyone's word for that they're going to buy something or that's what they like. The only thing that has ever dictated what someone will buy is that they buy it. I make decisions all of the time, and those things are often wrong, but every time I have an open forum of what I should do and I ask people, every time they're wrong. Every time. This is the famous like, oh, you want this print? Okay, I'll make a print. Like I've made so many prints because people told me they would buy them, and never, ever, not one time have they ever been successful. But if I just took people's advice of what I should make, like I should make a bunch more prints. So I learned a long time ago that the thing that matters is whether someone buys it, and then whether they buy the second time and the third time. So yeah, that's a long way to say, like, I think you should choose the thing because you are going to have to sell the thing. Like you are going to have to live with it for the rest of your career. You are going to have to love it enough that you can talk about it to people like Jen, to people like me, to publishers, to editors, to fans, to everyone. And you have to find different ways to talk to a retailer versus a publisher versus all of these people. And you have to literally spend every day at least thinking a little bit of these projects. So if you don't make that choice and you let someone else make it, you're going to be in a career down a path you don't want to be on. And I would much rather be on a path that has less potential fans in it that I love than to pick the biggest thing at the time, because again, you have to write it. Like you have to live with it. Like you have to love it so much that you are willing to spend your Saturdays talking about it, to go to conventions and to do it instead of hanging out with other people. So I don't see how you can let the fans decide, even if that might be a more business commercial reason.
Well, it's a feedback.
Give me just a second, because we finally got Bill Miles in. So you guys are the experienced people in the room, okay? You guys have got lots of experience. We have the next generation of creators in the room. Bill and I met through a mutual friend who owns a comic book store, and he just showed me. All he gave me, honestly, was this is the image I got from him, and he said, "Hey, this book's pretty boss. You should, get a copy." So I contacted Bill and I said, "Hey, I want to have some copies of your book to sell." This was in hard shutdown for COVID, and my customers were hungry for things to read, and since they couldn't get Marvel or DC because they were taking a little time off, which was a great thing to do for the industry,
it just happened to work out at the exact same time.
It worked out exactly right.
I was like, well, when you told me how much you wanted, I was like, are you sure that's not a mistake? That's what I was thinking. I was like, really? I hadn't gotten an order like that before, not in bulk like that. So I really do appreciate it, and I really hope people who do buy it through you. And I believe we made actually an exclusive cover for you guys, right?
That's the exclusive cover. I bought a run of the normal cover, so I have both of these. So
yes, that's right. The variant for you guys, and then the normal just cover for it. So yeah.
If you read this book, and if I took away the picture of Bill and just said, "Hey, read this book," and you tell me where in someone's career do you think they are when they wrote this book, you would never ever guess that it was then. Were you 16 when this was finished?
Yeah, 16 going on 17.
So, fully realized this.
Cool. Awesome.
It was a real pain, though, I will say, because I don't know if you guys have been talking about this. I think I briefly heard. Who am I with right now? Sorry, I didn't get to introduce to the other.
William Grant out of Hawaii with Lime Media, and Russell Nohelty, famous novelist and graphic novelist.
Russell, raise your hand. Okay, now I know. Sorry, that I got a little. I'm not very good with faces and names, so good. Okay, Russell, and then above on my screen is William. Hi.
Aloha kako.
Yeah. Sorry, the internet's cutting in and out a little bit, but I'm sure you were talking about this earlier. I mean, when it comes to like publishing your own book, it is a lot of money. Like when I first started, I was like, I didn't realize how much it was because I'm just the writer. I don't know about you guys, if you guys are just the writers or if you're also the writers and the artists. For me, I am just the writer. So when it came to the artist, you have your pencils, inks, colors, letters. So like when I first started out, I tell this to everyone. I was actually on a panel at Wizard World in Madison, which is where I met. His name's blanking my mind right now. I know who he is. Say it again.
Lauren Becker. Is that how we
Lauren? Lauren, I gave him a copy of my book there, but I was on a panel there as well for creating comics. I remember saying that I really didn't know how much it was going to be, and I strolled in thinking that it was going to be the easiest thing in the world. I was just going to write it and these people were going to make it and it was going to be perfect. I didn't think about the money. I was truly thinking like an adolescent kid, like a teenage kid. But after, putting in the work for it, it was definitely worth it. Just kind of an overview on how I feel about that. It was definitely worth it, especially when it comes to making something like that. It's like a huge accomplishment for me in my life. And I'm sure both of you can say the same, William and Russell. It's just, like that first time when you get to see it in physical form or just all together, put all together, it's amazing. So, yeah.
You got 30 seconds to pitch your book. Go.
30 seconds? Oh, so, okay. So usually when I do this, it'd be like, all right, so the character is Ryan Vlory from Madison, Wisconsin. He is raised by his mentally and abusive father, James Vlory, who is the head of all crime trade in Madison, Wisconsin. This is the first book I'm talking about. The second one just came out. But anyways, going back to the first book, kind of the overview. Ryan's character decides he doesn't want to be part of the family anymore. And James's character is like, I don't know how I feel about that. And everything, kind of crumbles from there. I don't want to give too much away.
It's ultra violence, very mature in its the way it was written, and so you never. That's why I would say you would never guess that it was written by someone that was of your age, because it reads as not a 16-year-old writing at what they think violence and those kinds of things would be like. It feels like it comes from the real world, that it was correctly done. So mad props, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't believe it's been 3 years. That's how long. I mean, I'm 19 now. Yeah, so it was like 3 years ago. That's when that was first published. So
we're up against our time. So can everyone go around and give your social media and how people can contact you if they have any more questions?
Yep.
All right. My name's William Grant. I'm the publisher at Comics Hawaii. You can visit us at comicshawaii.com. We're also on Facebook, and we're on Instagram, and Twitter. Russ?
I'm Russell Nohelty. Easiest way to find me is at russellnohelty.com, but I am at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Russell Nohelty.
And I am William Miles. You can find us through Instagram mainly. That's where we promote our stuff at the Hawk Comics on Instagram. But be paying attention because we are teaming up and making an indie company, I guess. So that'll be coming here. Yeah.
That'll be awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time, for giving part of your Saturday to us. We appreciate so much of the experience. Hope to have you guys in the future.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Good day now.
You too.